Hey guys, welcome back to another video. I like these glasses much more than my other ones, but I do look a little bit weird, so we're gonna change those out. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well, staying safe on the road, and taking it one step at a time. It's the end of the week, and you know what? I am so excited. Did you know that there was actually a time where I used to hate weekends because I wanted to continue working and I couldn't because everyone else was resting? Oh, how times have changed. Anyway, since it's the end of the week, we're going to take a look at the weekly market update and forecast. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. I teach about the trucking industry with a heavy focus on the freight market as well as spot market analysis, while I try to make sense together with the community on YouTube, make sense of this crazy market. So if this is a topic that interests you, feel free to subscribe down below and join this amazing community. As always, we're going to be taking a look at capacity, what's going on with carriers leaving and entering the market. We're going to take a look at the general market situation, volumes, rejections. We'll see how it's reflected in the spot market and where to go. We'll forecast where to go if you have a dry van, reefer, and flatbed. Now, also before I forget, this Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, I am doing a live question and answer. So if you have any questions about the industry or just want to chat, you know where to find me. Ready? Let's go. All right, guys, as always, we're going to start with the carrier capacity update. So again, red line is involuntary revocations. How many carriers lost their authority? And this is actually the lowest number since the beginning of April. Then we have new authorities, people who just got their MC and DOT number activated. This is the green line. Not the lowest, but it's going down. Then we have the voluntary revocations in blue, reinstatements in yellow. We lost a total of 339 carriers as of last week net. Total since the start of April, we lost 7,456 carriers. Do you love my handwriting? I know I do. 7,456 carriers lost since April. So that's in a span of about 5.5 months now. And you would think that this kind of loss of carriers would do something, boost the market in the right direction, but nope, we are still patiently waiting. All right, let's take a look at what's going on with volumes and rejections. And I have some good news here. So this chart shows us, again, blue is general freight volumes. How much freight is there in the general freight market for all types of equipment? The white line shows us tender rejections by all types of contract carriers. How much freight from the total volume is getting rejected and therefore pushed into the spot market? As a reminder, higher tender rejections tend to mean that the spot rates are going to increase. So we can see that volumes are, they went down as of yesterday, but they are continuing to increase, which is good because, as a reminder, the more volume, the more it soaks up that capacity, right? The tender rejections, which was very surprising, it kind of skyrocketed, right? I don't know what exactly happened, but this is due to dry vans, not flatbeds, not reefers, it's dry vans. Don't know what happened, but currently tender rejections are at 3.94%. Now, when I said skyrocketed, I meant relative to before. Of course, 3.94% of rejected loads is really not that much. Only 3.94% is actually getting rejected and possibly ending up on the spot market. But to see the change from last week, let's take a look at this chart, which is the same exact chart as before. It just shows us the percent change from the week before. Rejections increased by 16.6%, which is wonderful. Volumes increased by 0.9%. since last week, which is not as much as rejections, but at least volumes are continuing to go up. All right, now let's take a look at the spot versus contract market. So this chart shows us how much more contract carriers get paid than spot carriers per mile. Currently, the difference is 72 cents, which means that contract carriers are on average getting 72 cents per mile more than those spot carriers, right? But the gap is narrowing. You can see it is narrowing. And if contract carriers start getting closer to that spot rate, rejections should increase and therefore more volume ends up on the spot market. But we're very far from that for now. All right, finally, let's talk about diesel prices. And here I definitely don't have any good news for you guys. Diesel prices are still going up like crazy, right? You can see ever since, I think it's July 24th, it has just been going up. Not climbing slowly, it has been kind of rocketing up. And currently we're at $4.36 per gallon on average. Now, usually I show you this chart where we can see which markets had a diesel price increase and decrease. I decided not to do it this time because all markets experienced an increase. But what I will show you is this diesel map. The darker an area, the more expensive the diesel prices are. So right away, I'm going to tell you California, the Seattle, Washington market, and the Reno, Nevada market don't refuel there. The diesel goes up to or above $5.66 per gallon. Now, the rest of the plain states, I would call them, and the Northeast is also very expensive. Stick to Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. These are the markets where diesel prices range from $3.87 per gallon to $4 per gallon. And I'm looking at it here. See, it's the different colors, as you can see. So yeah, stay away from the coasts, fill up in the, I guess, Midwest and South is the best way to put it. All right, finally, let's take a look at this chart, which shows us, this is by DAT Analytics, and we can see the changes on the spot market that are happening. So we're only going to focus on this line, whoops, what did I do? On this line or this column right here, and only up to here. So these two numbers. Week over week, spot load posts decreased by 12%, and this is for all equipment types. Week over week, spot truck posts increased by 2.1%. What does this mean? It means that volume on the spot market, according to the DAT load board, so what is being posted on the DAT load board, which I know some of you tend not to trust it, which I get it, but still, it's comparing apples to apples, right? Volume on the DAT load board decreased and capacity increased. In other words, story of our life for the past 18 months. Now let's look at more specific data, starting again with flatbeds, starting with the spot volumes for flatbeds. As we can see, this is us last week, and we can see that volumes, they did decrease a little bit last week again, unfortunately, and we're way below that 5-year average, which is the black dotted line. In terms of flatbed spot rates, those also saw a decrease, but they are following that 5-year pattern. Currently, rates are around $2.37, whereas we should be at around $2.42. Yeah, the 5-year average is $2.42 here. So yeah, unfortunately trending below that, and it keeps declining. It's not declining by much, but the trend is there, sadly. All right, since Sonar does not provide data for flatbeds, we are forced to look at the DAT heat map to see where the best places to go are. So let's take a look. So not much has changed from last week. Oregon and Washington are tight markets, as well as the South. Now, the South is pretty much self-explanatory for the most part. It is getting a little bit worse. You can see some red markets, previously red markets, are becoming a little bit more orange, which means that capacity is loosening. But in terms of Oregon and Washington, these are definitely places where brokers find it challenging to sell loads, right? And most good loads, they will go, or decent paying loads, they will go either to the West Coast or somewhere to Wyoming, Denver, Colorado, or Colorado in general. But from my personal experience, like I said in the post yesterday, if you just wait, brokers will start hiking up those rates. These are two markets that brokers are having a tough time with when it comes to flatbeds. Now we have the drawdown, starting with the spot volume. Sadly, volume here also decreased. It did decrease according to the 5-year pattern as well, so I'm not too worried. I mean, I can't be any more worried than I am now. realistically. Can't you tell I'm like talking fast? I'm all over the place, but yeah, volumes for dry vans did decrease on the spot market last week. In terms of rates though, they experienced a tiny increase. So they went from like $1.90 per mile to $1.91 per mile. And this is on average. Whereas according to the 5-year average, we should be at around $2.15 per mile for dry vans. Now, okay, let's take a look at what's going on in the general freight market when it comes to dry van volume. Reminder, red means there was a decrease in volume, blue means an increase, gray, no change, white shows general volume. Pretty much the West Coast, all of it either had a really significant decrease in volume or no change. We also had a decrease in Montana, Utah, Colorado, Houston, Texas, looks like the Fort Worth or Dallas market, Michigan, and then some random places. We did have some increases as well, but the places where volumes increased, except for maybe Maryland and Delaware, you can see that they're pretty flat overall. So those increases, yeah, they increased, but there is not much volume to begin with. All right, now I'm going to ask you guys to brace yourselves because I'm about to show you the tender rejection map for dry vans. Now, I know I said that the rejections that skyrocketed as of yesterday, those are dry van tender rejections, but we're going to be looking at the change from last week. The map is red, which means that there were tender rejection decreases for dry vans across the board with the exception of Michigan, parts of Ohio, and West Virginia. What happened? I have no idea what happened. But let's take a look at the DAT heat map. We can see that the action for dry vans, it's actually moving to the east rather than staying in the west, with the exception of Southern California, a sliver of Northern California, and Dallas, Texas. But mostly Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, Memphis, Tennessee, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, all of these places, they are tight markets, whereas the West Coast is slowly dying. So where do you have to go if you have a dry van next week to grab relatively better opportunities? So for that, we're going to look at this map, which shows us volumes and rejections, and we're looking for places that are as blue as possible, higher rejections, and as tall as possible, more volume. All right, we have, of course, Michigan right here. You can see this is the hottest market and has a ton of volume. Not sure what happened in Michigan. You let me know, but Michigan looks like it's going to be a good place relative to the rest of the market, right? Wisconsin is still interesting. Virginia, because it has volume here a little bit. West Virginia actually has a higher tender rejection than Virginia, but it's flat. There's no volume, so doesn't work for us. And then we have the only other place I can really mention is California. And the reason for this is because the rejection rates here are only 5.78%, but the volume is really high and it makes up for the lack of rejections there, right? But in general, it looks like for the dry van, they're getting squeezed. Those relatively better markets, yeah, they're becoming more and more scarce at the moment. Finally, we have reefers. So in terms of spot volumes, they decreased as well as for dry vans and for flatbeds, right? Volumes decreased across the board. They are not really following the 5-year pattern as of last week, unfortunately. In terms of spot rates, those actually decreased as well. Very slightly, but there is a decrease. We were at about $2.45 per mile, now about $2.43 per mile. But where we should be is at $2.52 per mile according to the 5-year average. So unfortunately, we have that. We are following the general pattern, the 5-year pattern, which is good. And hopefully we're going to see some increases in those reefer rates if we continue following this pattern. All right, let's take a look at the general freight volume for reefers. We can see that, again, for the most part, volumes either decreased or there was no change. But Idaho, we have the Yakima, Grandview, Washington market, parts of Minnesota and North Dakota, parts of Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois. They all had increases in volume. I'm not even going to mention places like Kentucky, Virginia, and Jacksonville, Florida, because they're flat, right? So whatever increase there was, it doesn't really make a difference. What about tender rejections? Much more interesting map than for the dry van. We can see huge tender rejection increases in Spokane, Washington, Utah and Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, Southern California, all of Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan, and Virginia right here. So a much more interesting map for sure than for the dry van. Let's take a look at the DAT heat map now. So I have to say, it's looking better. According to the DAT heat map, it's looking better. Why? Well, because first of all, we have these random hot areas, which are the red markets. I don't know what Maine is doing here, but apparently it's a market with tight capacity. What is making me a little bit more hopeful is that the surrounding markets, especially here on the eastern portion, they're getting more orange. And that is a good thing because that means the capacity is tightening a little bit there. Is it something that will stick? I have no idea, but we shall wait and see. So where do you have to go if you have a reefer, and where do you grab those relatively better opportunities? So number one, all of California. The rejection rate here is 6 to 7%, but that volume, just like with the dry van, it makes up for it. Then we have this Grandview, Pendleton, Oregon area where the rejection is 12.22%. Spokane has a higher rejection rate, but again, the market is flat, so I'm not going to even mention it. Twin Falls is okay, 7.14% rejection, some volume. Then we have Memphis, Tennessee, 21.92% rejection, but the volume is continuing to decrease week over week. And then we have this whole area right here, right? This area is good, relatively speaking. The rejection rates are from 11 to 17%. They're close together, which means that if you have to deadhead out of a worse market where you can't find the type of load you want, you're not deadheading very far. So I like this. Next week for reefers, it seems like this will be a decent area with more opportunities. So there you have it, you guys. This is the reality that we are all living in right now. And the thing that gets under my skin the most is the instability and unpredictability of the freight market. My business partners and I, we continue to try and make forecasts to help us make decisions. And the thing is, the forecasts are usually based on today's situation. And then, of course, it's a surprise every time because this piece of crap market keeps changing and not in our favor. And the biggest curveball recently, of course, was the diesel prices. Not the fact that they went up, but by how much and how quickly they went up. That being said, the general freight market numbers, they are moving in the right direction, right? And it's giving me a little bit of hope that something is changing. Now, when I say something is changing, I'm not even talking about snail's pace here, right? I'm talking about much, much slower than that. But something is brewing, and eventually, if of course capacity keeps leaving the market and those general freight market numbers keep moving the way they are, eventually, of course, we're going to see the effect on the spot market. When will that be? I have no idea. Basically, guys, we're in a wait and see environment. For now, just keep on taking it one day at a time. At least that is what I am doing. Anyway, guys, wishing you an amazing weekend. Stay safe. I'll see some of you at the live at 4:30 Eastern this Sunday. And for those that I don't, I will see you in the next video. Bye.